Okay, you guys all hear me?
Yes.
So my presentation is entitled Romance, Love, and Chick Flicks, and for the foundation of this presentation, we will start with an icon, which is part of the Russian tradition. This icon was painted in the 15th century by a Russian monk, Andrei Rublev, and it is one of the most famous iconographic depictions of love in the Trinity. It's based on the biblical story of the hospitality of Abraham, and each of the angels represents a Trinitarian figure, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the reason why this icon in particular is a prototypical vision of love is the angels are all in deference towards each other because they're bowing, they have respect. And at the same time, if you follow along the bodies, come down over, go up to their eyes, and go straight across, what do we have in the middle? A chalice. Because love is ultimately a communion and union of persons embodied in the Trinity. And as Colton said, since we are made in the image and likeness of God, we have this innate desire to love. And this love might be romantic love, friendship, comes in many different ways, but the Trinity is a great example, especially this icon. The first is the Sisterhood of Traveling Pants. It goes great with margaritas, by the way, if you're up to the age. Pretty much the story is they all are in a sort of thrift shop and they try on this pair of jeans. The jeans surprisingly fit all of them. And they're in sort of like at the end of high school, going into the summer, so each of them have different plans. We will start with Tiffy right here. She wants to make this documentary. She's staying in her hometown, but she encounters this girl that kind of annoys her and wants to just ask all these questions, take over the documentary. Turns out she has leukemia, this little girl. And it is this bond that she develops with this little girl, which embodies that though she has trouble understanding this little girl, the second that she realizes and has a personal connection with her, that is what she draws on for this union between two people. And it's not sexual at all, of course, and not romantic. But if we move on to Carmen, she comes from a broken family. Her father and mother are divorced. Her father, she wants to go and visit her father over the summer, and surprisingly, when she gets out of the car, what's going on? The father is living with a woman who has 2 children, and he's going to remarry, and that's the big surprise. So instead of spending the summer with her father, what happens? Well, she gets to go wedding shopping with her new, soon-to-be stepmother. So that's not the best of situations. And what happens in the end, actually, is after a conflict, she ends up leaving, and because her father doesn't go after her, and she is completely upset, but the 2 people, so she goes back home, the 2 people we're really going to focus on are Bridget and Lena. Bridget is the blonde-haired one. She's going off to soccer camp. And she thinks, oh, I'm going to meet so many men there, you know, everything's going to be great. Turns out it's all girls. There is one male soccer coach, though. His name is Eric. And what happens is she makes it her purpose to get with him. And the problem is she, her mother committed suicide. And the psychologist, towards the beginning of the movie, says that you have a single-mindedness that borders on recklessness. And this is a problem because you're not truly coping with the death of your mother. So what happens? She eventually gets the guy after chasing after him. They have sex, but instead of all these loosey-goosey, dubby feelings that most romantic comedies like to tell us. No, she feels empty on the inside. She doesn't know where to be. She leaves, and she doesn't feel so fulfilled, and she even questions. She succeeded in what she wanted, but ultimately it doesn't fulfill her because that union of the Trinity, she is looking for that love, but it is ultimately in the wrong place. To use a fancy Greek word that the church sometimes likes to employ, metanoia, all it means in Greek is meta, which is change, and then noia, which is heart or mind. We like to use it in terms of confession because our innate desire to love is one of those where I want to go there, and that's the ultimate goal, that's a good goal, and I'm heading towards it. I think I'm still on the path to run into objects. So, what happens? Turn. And that is the metanoia. That's why you go to confession. That's what the church is for, and what God is, because we're constantly turning back to our goal. So, she experiences a depressive episode. Fortunately, her two friends are here to kind of get her out of it. Lena, on the other hand, is in Greece with her grandparents. She meets Costas on the sea, which is this dashing Greek man. And the only problem is when she tells her grandmother about it, there's a family feud, just like Romeo and Juliet, I suppose. And of course, love can't keep them apart, but before she falls in love, what is the problem? She's indecisive. She doesn't know. She's too afraid to love, and she makes a great point. She says, though Bridget and Carmen had lost a parent, or the parents are divorced, and has gone through this heartbreak and brokenness, they are still able to allow themselves to be vulnerable and to love. So she's searching for that. She ultimately does accept it and has a relationship with Costas. Grandparents find out there's a massive little, connection going on. And what happens when they try to break it apart? Well, she goes to the grandfather and she says, I know you love the grandmother in the same way that I have feelings for Costas. So give me the chance. Allow me the opportunity to experience potentially that same lifelong love. And what does the grandfather say? Who's quiet and hasn't spoken a word throughout the whole film? Go. And she goes to the university and meets up with him. And pretty much the end of the movie, you have these great image of friendship. They force Carmen to go back to her father, and she participates in the wedding. She's just sitting out in the audience. What does the father do when he catches sight of her? He goes out to the audience and takes her and brings her up, even though she's not dressed, and admits sorrow for not going after her. And that is why the Sisterhood of Traveling Pants is an excellent film. The Notebook. Everyone loves it. Well, we all know the story. You have this poor local country boy, falls in love with the heiress. Mother breaks in cars, like usual. He writes letters, mother hides letters. He goes to war with friend dies. And she's audience size, yeah. So she falls in love with this and becomes engaged with the lawyer, has everything going for him. You should go after this lawyer figure. But of course he returns, they get back together. The important thing about this movie though is the beginning and the end. It's set with an older man and an older woman. The woman is in a nursing home, and it turns out she has dementia. This movie is an example of the union of people in marriage when, all throughout life, especially when it is hardest. Because the Notebook itself, the title, is a manual. The manual is that if he reads the notebook to her, she will come back to him, hopefully. And this is the thing. He has hope. He reads the manual. His kids even come at one point and say, why do you keep doing this? But he reads it anyways, just for the possibility of 5 minutes of being with his wife. And what happens? She does come back. And though when she does begin to recede back into Alzheimer's, particularly dementia, he still is there and willing to make the sacrifice and be with her and see as she deteriorates. But it's not like, oh, we're going to take the easy way out. Let's just euthanize her. Oh, let me just divorce this woman because it'd be like easier financially. No, he's always there. And she even says, I would love to just, end and for both of our lives to be with each other together. And what happens? They die in the hospital bed together, falling asleep and holding each other. Pride and Prejudice. This is your 19th century version of Nicholas Sparks. And on top of it, Jane Austen writes better than Nicholas Sparks. So Darcy is the cold, aloof, stereotypical man, rich, wealthy. He just stands there like, oh my gosh, look at this man. Elizabeth Bennet over here is on the poor side. She's strong, independent. I'll do what I want. I don't care what other people have to say. They're both prideful and they're both prejudiced. So the whole idea of like, oh, which one's which? Well, they're both. And that's why they're great for each other. It displays romance in a little bit more realistic depiction than other examples because they hate each other in the beginning. They have problems. He at first proposes and she says, you insulted my family. How could I ever accept a proposal from you? And it is only through various actions that he's done, for instance, going off when her sister elopes, to sort of rescue that situation, that, she sort of reconsiders her opinion. And that is Pride and Prejudice. Now, romantic comedies, romance, chick flicks, all of them are going after this deep desire for love, and it's hard, and it can be in friendship, and sometimes it's extremely sad. So if you take, for example, P.S. I Love You, and you have to go through the stages of grief, but it's worth being vulnerable because just as C.S. Lewis, who's always been quoted for some reason, and talks about how love is vulnerability, because if you're not vulnerable, then you can just wrap up your love, give it to no one, and it'll become hard and impenetrable. And guess what? You can't break that which is impenetrable. So the thing is, chick flicks go after that longing and desire within each and every one of us. Thank you very much.